Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to Airbrushing for Beginners, setting up brushes, paint, compressors. It's very daunting when you first start out and you look at all these different websites, and the ones that you usually go to is straight to Amazon because everyone's got the Amazon app. You click on it, type in airbrush compressor and pages come up. So I've got Amazon on my tablet just here, and I'm going to pop some up in the screen on ones that I think are ideal for starting out with. I mean, most of these little airbrush compressors, they all do the same job when you're starting out. They'll all get your brush going at different prices. Now, I've just come up to one now, which is this one. It's an Amazon choice and it's 83 quid and it's got a tank on it. Now you get these ones and you also get exactly the same one called TimberTech for 86. There's one for 86. It's exactly the same compressor when you look at them. They all do the same thing. You can airbrush with these, they're absolutely fine. The only things you'll find with the small compressors, and when you're a beginner because you're eager to paint and you sort of lose track of time when you're painting when you're a beginner because you go for hours and hours and hours, these things get hot. They tend to get quite warm. And that's the only thing you've got to watch out for. You just got to give them like a running time of, say, maximum an hour, and just let it cool down, and then fire it up again. You'll find that with the small ones because they're sort of continuously running. Because when you're running a brush at, say, minimum 15 to 20 psi, that brush can disperse that air quite quick. It's surprising, it's only a small little airbrush, but it does disperse that air quite quick. So on them little small tanks, you'll fill it up, you turn your compressor on, you fill it up, you hear it kick in, and it goes psh, and it stops, and then you're pressing on the trigger, and when it drops to a certain PSI, it'll kick back in again and start running. It usually catches you up and then kicks back out. But if you're running higher pressure, anything above 25 to 30, you'll just continuously hear it running. So that's why I say they get quite hot. But price wise, the cheapest one I found on here is 83. £83 with a 3 litre air tank will be absolutely fine. And then when you type in airbrush on Amazon, because you'll be looking for an airbrush, some of these compressors come as package deals, and me personally, I'd do it separately. I'd get separate parts. I wouldn't buy one of these package deals that gives you the compressor, the airbrush, and some real nasty paint, because you'll just beat yourself up because it'll be a struggle. You'll be struggling with that kit. For one, the paint, the airbrush will be absolute pony. It really will. You're basically paying for the dearest part, which is probably the compressor. The rest of it's just all cheap, nasty stuff just thrown in to make the little package deal look better. So steer well away from them. So source your compressor first. You can go the Amazon routes. There was that one for 83. I'll leave a link in the description to a website to have a look at some of their compressors that are over the £100 mark, and any of them ones over the £100 mark on their website are good, very good. So when it comes to brush, I've just typed in airbrush. Now the first one for me that popped up that I would recommend if you're on a budget, the first one that's come up on the screen is a Galleria, and it's a Galleria GHAD 39 which I've got here. GHAD 39 on Amazon, it's £31.99. For a beginner's brush, I don't think you'll beat it on the cheap side of things. A lot of the Chinese brushes that you see on Amazon and things like that, the ones for 20 quid and £23, and they look all singing and dancing, they are very sort of cheaply made, mass produced, cheaply made. Now you'll find with the Galleria, they're a little bit better and a little bit more robust, a little bit more heavy duty, weighty, and they perform well. Now I've done a video on the channel on the GHAD 39, which is this one here, and I achieved that portrait with this brush, and quite easily with this brush. Worked fine, was easy to clean, easy to get on with. You get 2 needle and nozzle setups with it, so you get a 0.35, which is a great beginner's needle to get your paint through, and you get a 0.5. So if you want to put some thicker paint down, you can put the 0.5 in it, bang, you're good to go. That will run absolutely fine on one of them cheap compressors. It really will. No dramas. You got yourself a good little introduction level into airbrushing to get you started and get you practicing. So that's the brush that first popped up that I'd say, yeah, give it a go at the price of 31 quid. You can't go wrong. Then scrolling down, I mean, there's all sorts on Amazon. There's ones with these little tiny compressors, and as I say, these job lot kits, stay well away from them because they're no good. Another gallery has popped up, which is the trigger one, which is the, which one's this one? This one is the 68 trigger. Now, I recommend that as well. It's a good little trigger airbrush. If you want to put some, if you want a good combo for starting out, go for the small compressor, go for the GH39, and if you want a triggered airbrush, you're not going to beat that one at £66. It's a cracker, it really is. 5mm and a 038mm, so you get 2 needle nozzles, 2 cup sizes with it. You get your little pistol trigger, and it's great for spotting in some paint. So if you were moving into sort of automotive work, and say someone goes, oh, I've got some stone chips on my alloy wheels, any chance you could touch them in for us? Perfect, absolutely perfect for touching in alloy wheel spokes and things like that. Yes, you can put clear coat through these, but you have to thin your clears down. You really do, because it's a thick paint. If you put the 0.5 in this, just thin your clear coat down to a good thin consistency and build the layers up. That's all you got to do when you're doing spot repairs with these things. So that's another little good one, and that's just popped up on Amazon now. So scrolling down, we've got the ones that have got the batteries on, where you've got the little portable compressor battery. Now, I did a review on the channel on one of them, and it worked great when I first got it, and then it packed up. Me personally, don't go down that route. Do not go down that route of these little portable battery compressor ones where they say they're doing 20, 25, 30 psi. They won't, and they get hot as well when they're running. I wouldn't go down that route, I really wouldn't. Scrolling down, let's have a look for some more brushes. There's loads and loads. You'll see pages and pages of the cheap stuff. You really will. And then the odd one that's really expensive just sort of pops up. Now, another good, I would say brilliant beginner's airbrush if you wanted to do like the next sort of stage up for price bracket combo on a better setup. So you could go that budget one with the Galleria and the cheap compressor, and then you could sort of, if you had a bit more money to spare, and you think, yeah, I'm really going to get into this, fancy going down this route long haul, you could buy a better compressor, like something like this. You could buy something like this. So this is over the £100 bracket. It's going to be a lot more sturdy for one, and you will have sort of, it's going to last. These things that you spend that little bit more money on are going to last. Now, the brush that I'd pair up with something like this would be, first off, H&S Ultra 2024. You won't get a better beginner's brush than that, guys. You really won't. You really won't. Solid brush by H&S, and I've said it. I've done loads of videos on the channel with this, on what you can achieve with this, what the brush can do, how easy it is to get on with. There's a load of videos on the channel with this, guys. So just have a little hunt through the channel and you'll find all the ones on the Ultra. Great, comfortable brush to work with. A good company that provides all the spares. You get great feedback support through them as well if you get any troubles with the brushes, but it's very likely you will. It's a good, solid beginner's brush that will last you your journey. It'll always be with you and you will always pick it up, and it's just like the Old Faithful. It'll become the Old Faithful, and that's what I call it, because all my older H&S's, they're just the Old Faithful brushes that you can just grab off the shelf, quick clean through with cleaner, chuck some paint in it, and it works every time. It just works. You just get on with it. As I say, spares for these are really good, reasonable prices, and there's loads of new stuff coming from H&S at the minute. So I think it's a really good company to go with, is H&S, because they're bringing out some really good stuff. They really are. They're designing their own style of stuff, where you get like a lot of the Chinese stuff is rip-offs of all the other brands, like the shapes of the bodies, the way they are, some of the triggers, they all sort of copy all the other ones. So that's what I'd go for if you had a little bit more money to spare on a better setup. And then when you get really into it and you want to sort of move into the automotive route, and then you're thinking sort of big spray guns, you like want to go down the route of having a go at clear coating your own work. You want to start going into doing motorcycles and things like that. Push bikes, even push bike frames are really big at the minute. Everyone's out cycling, so doing custom bike frames and things like that, really nice to do, but you're going to need that little better and bigger setup. So the compressor that I'd recommend would be, I'll just type it into Amazon now. The bigger the compressor, when you're moving into things like that, the better. Let's just have a look. 150. Right. Let's just have a look here. Is this one here. Now, this is the compressor that I've got, but this is the Mark II. I've got the Mark I of this that you can see on the screen. So my tank's yellow, this one's blue. And this one pumps out a little bit more CFM. Mine pumps out 13.5, this one pumps out 14.1 CFM, 150 litre, 150 PSI belt driven, 10 bar, twin HP, twin cylinder. Now, I can recommend you this for starters, guys, I really can. That compressor is 400 quid, 499, so it's £500. Yes, it's expensive, but when you look at the price of it and then you say pick up that brush is dearer than that compressor. That custom Micron Takumi is dearer than that £500 compressor. So when you think of it sort of that way, I can recommend you this because I've got the same one, but the version 1, which is the yellow tank, it looks exactly the same. Now that compressor that I've got is well over, it's got to be 6 to 7 years old, and it's never missed a beat. It's been absolutely brilliant for the big spray guns. Absolutely fine. Mini jets, big spray guns, and that's the one I use in this studio for the airbrushes. I'll just fill that tank up and then I can paint all day. I can just sit in here with one full tank of air and just airbrush all day in silence, because I can just fill it up, turn the compressor off, and I've got a whole tank of air that I can use for airbrushing the whole day. The only time you hear that kick in is if I'm using big spray guns at 2 bar and I'm clear coating a hell of a lot in here, or doing a lot of painting with the bigger spray guns. It'll drop down like your small compressors, you'll hear it drop down, but then it kicks straight in, it catches me up, turns straight off, and I've got full tank again. So a brilliant compressor from Wolf, highly recommended, guys. It really is a good compressor, and at that price I don't think you will beat that price. 500 quid for 150 litre for a 14.1 CFM output on that. It's really good. So that's what I'd go down the route if you're using big spray guns. Now when it comes to guns and your spray guns, you can get your, like you get your Iwata airbrushes, you can get Iwata spray guns. Now Iwata spray guns are really nice. Me personally, I think they're a little bit finicky to get on with. They atomise the paint down, they really do. They are a nice gun, but if you want something you can just get out the box, open it right up, chuck some paint in it and go bang, hit it and get a brilliant finish every time, I'd go DeVille Bliss. You cannot go wrong with DeVille Bliss spray guns, you really can't, and that's all I use when I'm in here or if I'm in the body shop. So if you've been watching the channel, you've seen the results I can get with the DeVille Bliss guns. They just perform really good, guys. So when it comes to DeVille Bliss, and you're going into the automotive type things, you're going to want sort of like, I'd say 3 guns, minimum 3. If you're on a budget, I would go an FLG on a 1.8 for your primer. or a 1.3. If you went 1.3 on an FLG, which is this one here, you could use that for base coat and clear coat, and it will put you a brilliant coat of base and clear down. There's a video on the channel of me using the FLG, and I think it's a brilliant gun for the price. It is solid and it puts you a cracking finish down. If you're doing it from, say, home, or you're taking it into work, even if you're a professional car painter, you can get away with using that FLG to put some cracking finishes down, because it will do it. It will perform. They're the sort of low end of the DeVille Bliss line, but are solid internals that will last at a good price. So me personally, I'd go FLG on a budget for base and clear, and then you could go FLG on a 1.8 or 2 mil for your primer, and you could use it as a primer gun, and then you could get a different base coat gun. Now when it comes to like a base coat gun, a base coat gun that I've used that works really well is the Pro Light, or the Pro on DeVille Bliss with the TE10 cap for bases. It works really well. But another gun that I used that I thought was really nice for base coats was the Segola Aqua. I think it's the Aqua, which is this one here. That laid down base coats really nice. An expensive gun, you're in the £300 bracket I think for that, but a solid gun that will last. You can look at these prices and think, cool, that's £300. But if you're doing it day to day, you're in a body shop day to day, and you are smashing out, say 2 cars a day, minimum. There's body painters out there that do a lot more than that, but just say 2 full cars a day, and you want to get that perfect base down, and a gun that is going to perform every time. It's got solid internals, so you can sling it in a gun wash, let the gun wash do its thing, give the gun a wipe down, chuck the next load of paint in, and bang, 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 and get them results consistent. That's why you pay your dearer money, because you've got that robust gun that will take the abuse of solvents, because you are pumping a lot of solvents through it, or water base. So that's a really good one. When it comes to clear coat guns, you could use the Segola 4600 Extreme. That's another one. It's a Canon, absolute Canon, but you can get some really good results with it. I've used that on the channel as well. I've used a few guns on the channel when I'm in the body shop doing the clear coat videos and sort of doing reviews on the guns. We use the Segola, I've used the W400 Valeria, which is really nice for clear coat. Sort of like it's quite a slim gun in the hand, the 400 high water, but really, really nice. And my go-to is the DV1, which I absolutely love. That's my go-to clear coat gun. So if you are going down the custom side of things and then you're moving into doing your own clear coat work, a compressor like that, any of them sort of guns for your base primers and your clear coats, you'll be good to go. It is a big layout for a start with all this, but like I say, we've started off like the airbrush side of things cheap, then I'll give you another option a little bit better. If you wanted to go another option on the airbrushes, like pro stuff, you're looking at anything from H&S, Iwata. I'd stick to them too when it comes to your sort of pro end stuff. And then when you're looking at a small compressor, I'd go Iwata when it comes to the small stuff on their compressors, like the Studio Jet, like ones like this. Any of these ones are the Iwata ones. They're really good, solid compressors, they really are, but that's your higher end bracket. When I just said that brush is like 500 for that brush, you've got your H&S ones which are tipping 200 and things like that. You are getting a more precision airbrush, better made, and they just last. They're on the shelf, guys. Ones of H&S's that are really old, Iwatas that I've got are really old, that were very expensive, but they just last. So it all goes on your sort of prices, and if you want to really get into it, because a lot of beginners jump on the airbrush scene because they see it's basically the photorealistic stuff at the minute. Everybody's doing it, and you see it everywhere. Everyone's on the photorealism route, and it's nice, but every beginner jumps onto that scene of airbrushing, and it's it's really screwing a lot of beginners up because they're jumping straight into it. They're seeing these pro artists do all these fancy techniques like erasing and scratching back, and they're just doing that straight out the box. They're having a go at all this erasing and scratching back straight off the bat, and it's like they're adapting way too advanced techniques that they've not even mastered the brush yet, and they're trying to apply that into their sort of muddy picture because they've not practiced enough, and they get frustrated and beat it up. So me personally, any beginner, do not jump on the photorealistic route straight away off the bat. Practice with your brush, find your style. You don't have to copy everybody else. Everybody seems to be going down this one track of photorealism when it comes to airbrushing. It's like the be all and end all. We all have to go down the photorealistic route. No, you don't. You really don't. You can adapt bits from that. You don't need to go down that route all the way. You can adapt little bits of that into your artwork and then follow your own path and do your own style, and that makes you more a unique airbrusher, and people see you for what you can achieve and the way you see your artwork, not how everybody else follows the path and sees artwork, because they all jump on the photorealistic route. And that's why I don't go down that path, because it's just the reproduction of another photo next to it, and it's like, it don't interest me. I've got my own style, I like my own twists and turns along my journey, and that's how I've always stuck to. But I do adapt some of that into my work just to make it, give it that little bit more pop, a little bit more sort of look to it. So yeah, just be careful on what journey you go down. But either way, enjoy it, take your time. It's not a rush. It always seems a rush for beginners because they just want to achieve that straight away. It's like, well, why can't I do it? They beat themselves up because it's like, I want to achieve that in the first week. It doesn't happen like that. It's like anything, when it takes time, you know. Pro athletes don't just go out and break a world record 100-meter sprint straight off the bat. They train for it, and it takes time and dedication. And that's how you got to look at it. It just takes a lot of years. I mean, I've been in this now, I don't know, it's 15, probably 15, 16 years it must be, coming up to that. And it's like, it's been a long haul, but an enjoyable haul, because I've not chased and followed them set paths and gone just down that one path. I'm at the T-junction where there's all these different avenues, and I've travelled down all the different avenues, and I've tried all the different ways with the airbrush, and it's been enjoyable going down all the different paths and learning different substrates, automotive, t-shirt, this, on vinyl, on this, on that, and you can just adapt it with these brushes for your path that you want to go down. So that's a little bit about brushes, compressors, and then big spray guns if you want to go down the big spray gun route. When it comes to paint, now let's just type in paint, airbrush paint on Amazon. Now you'll be a beginner, and then you'll click on Amazon and you type in airbrush paint, and the first one that comes up is a set for £13.99. Don't even go there. Don't go there on these cheap, nasty budget paints off of Amazon where they all say spray straight out the bottle, and there's all these customer reviews going, oh, these were amazing. No, they're not. If you want to go airbrush paints, go brands, the proper brands of paint, because that is your main headache when it's a beginner, is your paint consistencies and flows. That's where you'll struggle. You know, it's getting that right paint consistency and flow. Now, the ones that I use permanently now to date in the studio are Wicked version 2, not the original, the new version, really nice. Createx illustration, hands down, is brilliant. Golden high flow acrylics are very nice, and FW inks, we've got a row of them here, absolutely loving them. Using my isopropanol and water mix. I'll drop that in the screen now. So if you're using FW inks, try this mix that's on the screen. Works brilliant. If you're using Createx illustration, try that mix, and if you're using Wicked version 2, try that mix. Now, them mixes that you see there, I'm usually painting on paper, things like that. We're going to move on to that in a minute, but I'm usually painting on paper, canvas, when I'm using them mixes. Now, I have used them mixes on automotive recently on the channel, and they've been absolutely fine because we're running low air pressure. So they're the paints that I'd recommend because they work, and they have been around for a long time, and usually you will see every airbrusher when they're on YouTube, they're either using Createx Illustration, Golden, Wicked, or the inks like Liquitex inks as well are nice, FW. They all sort of stick to them sort of brands because they work, and a lot of the time these ones will work out the bottle, but them mixing ratios you've seen on the screen work an absolute dream at low pressure. So go for them sort of paints, steer clear of these job lot. I mean, there's one here that's got 24 bottles for $21.99, and it's like, don't go down there because they'll be horrendous. You'll struggle to thin them down, and they'll be annoying, and you don't want that frustration when you're starting out. You want to be able to pick a good quality paint up, thin it like the ones I've just showed you, because they'll last a long time when you're thinning it like that, and they just flow, and that's your headache out the way, where you can just press the trigger and you're getting that nice consistent flow. Other bits, papers. Now, starting out, there's this one that I'm using at the minute. I've used this quite a bit on the channel, which is this one on the screen. Now, this is a budget paper, a cartridge paper on A3, and I've done quite a few pieces on the channel with this, and it seems to work really well. It's quite thin, smooth, very smooth surface, so nothing to do with photorealistic work, erasing, scratching back. We're not even going down that route. You're a beginner. Don't even look at that route. You're practicing. So a piece of paper like this, or a booklet of paper on Amazon, I'll just pull some up now. Let's just type in. The reason why I go A3, it's a good size to work to, so you can get a decent size image on it. You're not working like A4, which is really small. You can blow your images up quite big. It's actually A3 cartridge paper booklet. So the one I'm using is this. Drawing, sketching, cartridge paper, A3 pad, 50 sheets, 140 GSM, acid free, suitable for pencils, pens, light watercolour. Now, I've used it with inks and I've used it with the acrylic paints on the airbrush. It's been absolutely fine, absolutely fine. If you really hammer the paint down on this, it will warp it a bit. It'll just start to soak in and just start to warp the paper a bit if you're really hammering paint on it. But it does dry down and can dry down. You can dry it down flat. If you ever get paper that ripples up and you think, oh no, I've ruined my artwork, it's all rippled, don't worry, don't stress. Let your artwork go off, flip it over, mist the back over with some water, and then press it. Basically put something flat on top of it, a bit of weight, leave it overnight, and your paper's lovely and flat the next morning. So you can sort that out, not a problem. But that paper's really good. I've also used as well, which is this one here. I've got it here so I can show you. This is another one that I'm using at the minute. And this is a fine grain heavyweight. So this one's a 200 gram. It's got there's a piece that we've done already on that. So we did that on the channel, on the A3, and that's on this paper, I do believe. Yeah, it is. That's on this paper that we've got here, and works really well. As you can see, we did that in FW inks, and that's sepia, and it just sprays on it really nice. So another good paper. This booklet on Amazon, for how many sheets did we get on this? 30 sheets. This worked out to £7.40, so a good paper to work on. Now, if you wanted to buy something like this and then and you was going down, you wanted to try the scratch back and a little bit of erasing, you could buy this and then you could cover that in gesso. Now gesso is like a primer. It's basically like a plaster, a very thinned out, watered down white plaster, and I've sprayed it on the channel. This is one of the videos on the channel. You can spray it and you can prime your paper up. So I've done videos where I've sprayed 3 or 4 coats of gesso on a piece of paper like that, let it dry, and then you can sand it with a block flat. So you take all the texture out and you can make it a really, really smooth surface. So if you wanted to do like erasing and things like that, you can go down that route. Just buy a tub of gesso. We'll type in gesso now. Let's just see what comes up. Now the ones that I've used Liquitex. I find really good. Can be a little bit expensive. I brought a litre bottle of that. Let's just see how much that is on here. I think I paid about £20 for a litre on that. It did me a few pieces of paper. It does go a long way, and it's really nice. You can thin it down with water. So if you were spraying it, because I sprayed it through a 1.4 DeVille Briss FLG, and I thinned it down to like a primer that you'd spray, like a 4:1 high build primer, made it a little bit thinner than that, and just sprayed like 3 or 4 coats. And I used a hairdryer in between coats to dry it down, dropped another coat on, dropped another coat on, and then when it had gone off enough, I pressed it, because it would roll the paper up, like I say, it sort of curls the paper up. So I just put an aluminium board over the top of about 5 sheets, put a load of weight on it, pressed it, sanded it down the next day, and you can do some really cool stuff with that. You really can, and the paint goes down really nice on that gessoed surface. You can also use gesso on canvases as well, and that works really well. So you can buy like a cheap canvas, or you could buy a second-hand canvas off Marketplace for like a £5, a big canvas that's got printed art on it, and then you can re-gesso it. So you can go over that artwork, gesso it up, and you've got a nice big size canvas, cheap, because some of the big canvases can go up to like £70–80. So my idea on that is just buy a second-hand one, gesso the surface for under the price you'd pay for a white blank canvas, and you're good to go. You've got a nice big surface to paint. So I've done that. That's a good and easy route around it. But gesso's really good, does work well. That will seal down over MDF as well. So if you wanted to do some MDF panels as a surface, 5 or 10mm MDF panel, because you can get cut-offs at B&Q and things like that, just go in like the bargain box at the end of the timber aisle where they cut it, and you can pick up some real cheap bits of timber for like a couple of quid, get a nice sheet of MDF, gesso it, you've got a really nice solid panel that you can do some erasing techniques on, scratch back techniques, and just hit it with a bit of gesso, sand it down the next day, job done. You've got a really nice canvas or surface to work on. So there's loads of avenues you can go down for surfaces. Other sorts of surfaces, if you wanted to sort of practice on, is composite aluminium board, sign board, dye bond board it's called as well. That's a real nice one, because that's powder coated, so that's the closest surface you're going to get to an automotive panel, like a gas tank or a car bonnet, a door, a wing, fender. That's just another good one to practice on, because you'll get to feel what it's like to spray on different surfaces. If you're permanently used to spraying on things like paper like this, where your paint absorbs, it's forgiving and it becomes very easy to paint on, because you can spray at different PSIs. You can get away with quite a bit up in the pressure, because the paper hits the paper and absorbs. When you move over to automotive, you've really got to slow yourself down, and you've really got to dial in your paint, and you've got to dial in your air pressure when you move over to that side of things, because paint lays down on them types of surfaces in a completely different way. It really does. It tends to hit it, stays wet, So you've really got to watch your paints on how they're drying, because you could lean against it and you can smear it. It's so easily done when you move over to automotive. But as I say, I've gone down all these different paths, so I've sort of mastered, or tried to master, every type of avenue with paint and the surfaces, and I know what goes with what, I know what paint lanes on top of what, I know what surface to go down, whether I'm going down on a timber surface or I want to paint on an automotive surface, on what to seal it, on what to varnish it with. I've tried it all and sort of done test panels on each piece, and I know what works with what. So there's a lot to learn as a beginner, but if you're starting out, that little setup at the beginning will work fine, guys, on the cheap side of things. And then if you are in it for the long haul and you've got that little bit more money in your pocket and you think, yeah, I'm really going to get into this, but I want a bit better brush and a little bit better compressor, go H&S Ultra 2024. You won't look back. One of them compressors that I showed you, and you will be sweet, and that brush will stay with you. And the beauty of that brush is, and the H&S lineup of brushes, once you go under the H&S umbrella, all the bits are like interchangeable. So your needle and nozzles, if you wanted to drop a 0.2 in your Ultra, or a 0.15 or a 0.6, you can. You can just get the needle and nozzle combo set up. There'll be a link in the description for H&S bits, so you can go over and have a look. But you can interchange it. Or if you wanted to move on to the next brush in the line of H&S, like the Evo, you can buy the Evo as you get better, and then you go up to the Infinity, and that's exactly what I did. I went that route. Same as Iwata, you can go Iwata and you go up the lines of brushes, but when you buy that brush, you're sort of, that's it, you've brought that brush. The next sort of step up is you're weighing out a lot of money to slightly better that brush. And when you buy an H&S, you buy the brush, and then if you want to tweak it, you're not weighing out well over the price of another brush. You're just buying a few bits, and you can tweak it and make your style of it your own. You can drop another trigger in it, you can drop another spring in it, different needle and nozzle combo in it, and it just works out a cheaper way of customizing a brush to your needs. So I hope this video has helped you out on bits. We've gone over paint, we've gone over a bit of paper, because these are all the bits that you're gonna go down these routes and think, what do I do? You know, stick to them sort of guidelines, and you'll be away. You'll be painting before you know it, and you'll enjoy it. And that's what it's about. Don't struggle at the beginning. It's a long road when there's no help. And you're looking at these websites that's got hundreds and hundreds of pages of compressors and airbrushes, and you instantly go down the real budget end Chinese cheap route, and you get it, and the compressor's no good and the brush is no good, and you've got the cheap paint that just don't spray, and it's frustration. You think, well, I really shouldn't have gone down that route, and you just chuck it all in the box, or you just throw it away. It just ruins your experience and ruins your journey when you don't know what to look for. So if you keep your eye out for them bits I said, you will be sweet. So thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget, if you are new to the channel and you're liking this sort of content, click the subscribe. It don't cost you anything. Press the notification. So yeah, thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one. Cheers.